Since the dawn of man, we have had the urge to compete. And to this day, we love to watch people compete against each other, whether it's the Olympics, the World Cup, or the Super Bowl. However, our competitive nature runs deeper than just the biggest sports on the biggest stages, and many competitions exist that can only be described as completely bizarre. Today, we're showing you 8 of the craziest competitions in the world. So for all this and more, stay tuned right here at Wonderlane. Would you describe yourself as competitive? Did you used to cry when you lost at Wii Bowling when you were a kid? Me either. What? Let's start at number 8 with one of the most bizarre contests in this entire list, the Worm Grunt Contest. Worm grunting is the technique of luring worms to the surface of the earth by vibrating them out of the ground. In the worm grunting competition in Wonderlane, United Kingdom, each participant is given their own 9 square meter field in a large meadow, and they have to bring as many worms as possible up to the surface of the earth. Everyone uses their own technique here. Some hop in place, others play musical instruments and bang a shovel on the ground to create vibrations. Last year, the winners made it to first place with only 11 worms, but the record for the most worms to reach the surface in 30 minutes without digging is over 500. At number 7, we've got the Extreme Ironing World Cup. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's competitive ironing, like ironing clothes, but it's extreme, right? So the ironing is not done in the laundry room. Participants have to iron in some very unusual places. At the Extreme Ironing World Championship, there are different categories in which the ironers compete. For example, in the Rocky style category, ironing is to be done on a mountain or on a rock. You can either iron on the top of the mountain, or you can even set up your ironing board on a wall. In the category Forest style, the contestants iron on branches and in treetops. Water style, they iron both on the surface of the water and underwater. The newest category of the competition is Air style, where participants board small planes with motorized parachutes or the combination of base jumping and ironing. You may be wondering who would want to take part in such a competition. Maybe overly aggressive moms with nothing to lose. I think people are just really bored, man. Anything to feel alive. Plus, it's productive, I guess. Let's move on to number 6 and a competition that brings the pain. The Death Diving World Championship. When jumping off the diving board, one normally avoids the dreaded belly, back, or butt flop. But in Oslo, Norway, there is a competition dedicated to these very fine art forms. It's not about agility, it's not about grace, and it's not about limiting your splash or any kind of technique. It is all about the clap of the stomach on the water. Before jumping, participants usually take a running start and they toss their helpless bodies into the water with reckless abandon. The pros, however, utilize a very specific trick. They fall belly down, but just before they hit the surface, they put their arms together and form a kind of ball to diffuse the impact. How the idea for the Extreme Jumping World Championship came about was explained by the Norwegian world champion Truls Torp. It's just a typical Norwegian thing. We're just absolutely crazy. At number 5, we've got a competition that's a bit of a head scratcher, to be honest. I don't know what's going on here. Every year, people from all over the world gather at Coppers Hill in Gloucester, United Kingdom for the Coppers Hill Rolling Race. Everyone gets a 4-kilogram slice of the very popular Gloucester cheese and they throw it down the hill. Then they all throw themselves down the hill after the cheese. It can get pretty wild. The goal is to be the first to reach the bottom of the very steep hill. Whoever manages to do this gets to keep the cheese. All I'm saying is that this cheese must be unreal. People are throwing themselves off a cliff for this grassy, dirty cheese. Let's stay in England for number 4. In Marchwood, one of the wildest eating contests in the world takes place every year, a nettle eating contest. Each participant gets a big bundle of nettle bushes, and then they have to eat as many leaves as possible. To drink, the participants get a glass of beer, which helps to get rid of the foul taste that the leaves produce. The nettle leaves are said to taste like spinach and are a rich source of vitamins, but there is an obvious problem in that the nettle leaves are poisonous. They've been known to cause swelling of the lips as well as black tongues when consumed raw, so the participants utilize some strategy here. They fold the leaves before they put them in their mouths so the prickly hairs on the surface do not come into contact with their tongues. This is just another example of English people acting up. I don't know why they're being like this. They also have a shin kicking contest, a contest that involves weird faces and hoops, and a pudding throwing contest, but it's British pudding, so it's more like a thick dough dish. Someone go find English people a hobby or something. Give them something to do. They can't go on like this. Number 3 features another curious competition held regularly in Castrillo de Murcia, Spain. It's part of the El Calacho celebration, an old festival that's been held in the Spanish town for over 400 years. It's all about the Calacho, or the devil, who's represented at the festival by a selected man in disguise. He runs after people with a whip and a stick, and the highlight of the event is the so-called baby jumping. To become the Calacho and have the privilege of running through the city in a devil costume, you have to show that you are the best long jumper in town. Because for baby jumping, you actually have to jump over real babies. Newborns between 0 and 12 months of age are placed on a mattress in the middle of the street, and the Calacho jumps over them. The more babies he's able to clear, the better. I definitely have a lot of questions about this one, like why babies? And who would volunteer their child for this? I am calling DHR on the entire country of Spain. At number 2, we're heading to Mother Russia. In Krasnoyarsk, Siberia, the so-called slap contest takes place every year. 2 men face each other and slap each other in the face as hard as they can. The first man to fall over or voluntarily leave the podium loses. Some athletes, such as the Siberian Vasily Kamatsky, have seen their opponents go down after one slap. If you look at the muscle definition and the arms of some of these dudes, it becomes very clear that anyone who decides to do this is signing up for a concussion from Vlad here. YouTuber Logan Paul recently expressed interest in the competition, but when he saw his competitor, he explained that he no longer wanted to compete because he was afraid of serious injuries. The prize money ain't worth the pain either, as the winner only gets like $500. Only men are allowed to take part in the competition, but recently there's also been a bagpipe contest for women only. The Russian Yashikin Cup involves 2 women slapping each other on the ass. Glorious. Oh, you wanted to see it? You want to see the rest of this clip? No. I'm calling the horny police. The aim is to make the opponent fall over or take at least one step forward. Compared to the men's competition, however, the women's competition is relatively harmless. So far, there have been no knocked out opponents, no major injuries, and most of the participants just bust out a sly little grin upon being spanked publicly. Last but not least, number 1, the wife carrying competition. This one's pretty much self-explanatory. The goal is to carry your own wife as far as possible. Participating men take their wives on their backs upside down. I guess this is more efficient for some reason. On the way to the finish line, there are various obstacles like ponds, mud puddles, and wooden planks. Even though the men do most of the work here, the women also have to endure a lot, often being dunked headfirst into the mud when their husbands slip. Some women have turned the tables and carried their men. The first prize is your spouse's weight in beer. So that's going to do it for our video on the 8 weirdest competitions that humanity has to offer. Which one of these competitions would you enter? Personally, I'm still caught up on this cheese, man. I will be rolling down Coppers Hill and eating the sacred Gloucester cheese for our 10 millionth subscriber special. And that is a solemn promise to each and every one of you, my dear subscribers. If you enjoyed this video and haven't subscribed yet, do it. Subscribe. Join us.